Mottek on Money continues here in 790 KABC. A lot happening on the local real estate scene these days. Let's get an update now on what's happening on the Los Angeles area real estate scene with so much uncertainty and important issues to consider in the current market. And joining us now, one of our great 790 KABC Mottek on Money sponsors, Wedgewood Homes. And joining us live is Kylie Moeller, Director of Market Acquisitions at Wedgewood Homes at wedgewoodhomes.com. Kylie, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Hi, Frank. Well, it's so good to be here again.
Wonderful to have you with us here. And as I was saying, a lot of uncertainty in the market these days. What does that mean for a homeowner who wants to sell, and how is real estate being impacted nowadays?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone who has been watching the news recently has seen there's been so much fluctuation, and day to day it's changing. There's been fluctuation in the stock market. We've been seeing an increase in the 10-year yield in reaction to current geopolitical events. And as you know, that directly impacts mortgage interest rates, which are also increasing concurrently with the 10-year yield. So really what this means is financing and what buyers can afford right now is being impacted. And we're seeing a lot of people starting to explore outside of the traditional listing process on the MLS. I think for a lot of people, when you think of listing your home on the MLS, it can be daunting. It can mean making repairs and possibly staging and having to coordinate showings and waiting on the market. And we're hearing more and more right now with this market uncertainty that that timeline doesn't necessarily fit their needs or their situation. So we've been hearing from sellers who recently, had a rental whose tenants just moved out, and they've been landlords for 20 years and they're done. They're done with this uncertain market. Or maybe they've, recently inherited a home and they're still grieving and they're not sure what to do. We've been working with sellers who are trying to close sooner rather than later now, people who are relocating, who just need to close on a really quick timeline. And I think that's what Wedgewood Homes really specializes in. We buy as is for cash, no repairs. We really take out that uncertainty. And I think now more than ever, people just want that sure offer in hand in this very uncertain market.
On the air live with Kylie Moeller, Director of Market Acquisitions at Wedgewood Homes at wedgewoodhomes.com. Such important work you're doing there, Kylie. And you mentioned inherited homes, and I know a common fear about that would be tax implications of inheriting an asset like that, especially in a market like L.A. where values have gone through the roof. What should families know about that?
Well, that fear is completely understandable, but in California, we do have something called a step-up in basis, which can be really helpful and impactful in markets, especially in high-appreciating markets like L.A. So how that works and what that means, when you inherit a property, the IRS resets your cost basis, or in other words, your starting value for your tax purposes. So let's just say your mom, purchased her house in Lakewood for $65,000 40 years ago. And today you've inherited, the fair market value is at $900,000. Your starting point for tax purposes is now $900,000. And the reason that's so impactful is that if you sell near that price, near that $900,000, your capital gains exposure could be close to zero, which that is potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax savings just built right into that inheritance process, depending on the price point, of course. But a lot of families don't realize that there is a step-up basis before it's too late to properly use it. And so I really encourage people to reach out to Wedgewood Homes before making any decisions. We have local experts who can find out more about your situation. You've inherited a home and really point you in the right direction, because we want to make sure that you are truly getting the full picture of what your options are and ultimately, hopefully, save you money in terms of tax purposes with the step-up basis.
That is such important information and important guidance. Are there situations where families accidentally lose that step-up benefit that you just described?
Unfortunately, there are, and I think this is really important information. A common mistake that we often see, and it's really unfortunate, but parents will sometimes add a child to title before passing, thinking It will make the process easier, but unfortunately, that portion of the property may not get that full step up. Another thing to consider is waiting too long. If your decision process drags on or if the estate drags on, heirs can end up paying more in capital gains just because the property is appreciated much more. And this is exactly why Wedgewood Homes, we have our certified trust and probate specialists who can really dive into your individual situation. It's a free, no obligation, just a conversation really just to get you started. And we buy as is with no repairs, and we can move quickly. So we can move on a faster timeline and hopefully give you an advantage.
Terrific. For someone in any of the situations that you've described, inheriting a home, relocating or downsizing, rental property, or someone who just needs to sell fast and get cash, what does it actually look like when they come to Wedgewood Homes?
Yeah. Well, for starters, selling your home can be a very daunting and very overwhelming process for anyone listening who hasn't really gone through that process. It's sometimes difficult to know where to begin. So we really try to make it simple for everyone. We boil it down to 3 steps, really. The first step is just reach out, talk to us. We offer a free consultation. There's no pressure, no obligation, and feel free to call us at 1-800-619-7121 or simply submit your property at wedgewoodhomes.com. One member of our team will be reaching out to you or will answer the phone, and we just gather information on that first call. It's really just a great conversation to understand where you're at and where we can meet you at. And then the next step from there is one of our local market experts would visit the home. We would gather information on what the condition of the home looks like. It's usually a 15 to 20-minute inspection, and then we can give you our all-cash offer. This offer has no hidden fees. There's no surprises. We truly want to make this as straightforward of a process as possible because we understand how stressful it can be. And if the offer makes sense, we move forward. We create a timeline that works best for the seller. Some people need 30 days. Some people need 3 days. We can do both. And ultimately what we hear right now is people just don't know that it can be very simple, and that's our goal. Our goal is to keep it simple and make this as stress-free as possible for every seller.
All right. The website, again, is wedgewoodhomes.com, and the phone number is 800-619-7121. Anything else you'd like to mention here for those sitting in traffic right now is dealing with any of the situations? Anything else that you'd like to mention here at this point?
I think one takeaway is don't navigate this process alone, whether you've inherited